Some major changes in the top 25 heading into week 3. We're going to give you our updated rankings, and keep in mind, I don't do it like the AP poll, don't do it like the coaches poll. It's a brand new top 25 every week. I do not move teams up and down. I start over from scratch every single week based off of what I have seen, and we are basing these rankings off of performance so far this season. Again, not where teams were previously ranked, not looking at preseason expectations. You do have to look at that a little bit because you just don't have, for some of these teams, you don't have a big sample size. Maybe some of them have not played a great team yet. So you have to look at that a little bit. You have to evaluate the wins and losses based on that a little bit. But we're trying to just look at the performance on the field. And like I've always said, after week 4, week 5, then we pretty much know which teams are at least good or bad, and we can judge the games, the wins and losses a little bit more accurately, and really start to look at the resume. Resume doesn't really matter right now. It's really more about, again, performance. So we'll start at the bottom, and we've got Arizona at number 25 at 2-0. The Sun Devils, so this team, this was kind of a tough one for me. They looked really good against Wyoming. Wyoming did just lose to Idaho, though, so that was, maybe not as good of a win as I thought. And they were in control against Mississippi State early. It looked like they would blow them out, and the game did wind up being pretty close. Mississippi State's a team that I don't see as a top 25 team, so I'm not really sure if Arizona State should be ranked or not at this point. It was really, really tough for me, but I went ahead and put them in at number 25, had a spot for them. We've got Oregon at number 24. They beat Boise State 37-34 in a game they could have very easily lost. Remember, I didn't even have Oregon ranked last week. But again, seeing Idaho beat Wyoming, that tells me maybe Idaho's not that bad. We already knew they were one of the better FCS teams. And then Boise State's a team that I view as a borderline top 25 team. So that's a good win. Even though their performance was not great, really could have lost this game very easily, had to lean on some special teams plays and things like that. But they did win against a quality team. So I've got Oregon number 24. And again, you have to look at the preseason expectations a little bit. We know the talent that this team has. I still believe that this is probably, I don't feel as confident, but I still think they're probably a top 10 team. But now, yeah, I'm starting to have my doubts. So I've got Oregon number 24, again, based off of the performance so far. Oklahoma at number 23, a sloppy performance against Houston, didn't do much on offense, winning just 16-12. They did win an easy game. So you look at their game in week 1, they took care of business compared to Oregon, who had a closer game against Idaho. That's why I have Oklahoma ahead of Oregon. But both of those teams have some question marks. Kansas State, number 22, they were able to beat Tulane. That was a tough, hard-fought game, but they were able to get that win again. It was tough, but Tulane is a quality team. It's kind of like the win for Oregon against Boise State. I view those wins pretty similarly, but Kansas State looked better in week 1 than Oregon, so that's why Kansas State up here at 22. And then Iowa at number 21. The question really becomes at this point but really you have to kind of pair Iowa and Iowa State together, because we know that those teams are very similar based off of what we saw on the field. It was a 2019 game, came down to a field goal at the end, so we have to view those teams as being very, very even. So the question becomes, are both of these teams top 15 teams, top 25 teams, not even top 25 teams? And that's the thing, when we're this early in the season, we just don't know. So I'm going to say they're both top 25 teams. I've got Iowa number 21, and again, Iowa State you'll see at number 20 in just a second. But first I wanted to mention some teams that I strongly considered for the top 25. So Northern Illinois, Notre Dame, Texas A&M, Illinois, Kansas, and Boston College. I just, is Northern Illinois that good, or is Notre Dame just not that good? I just don't know. And given the fact that Northern Illinois is a MAC team, and I just don't really think that they're a top 25 team. I could be wrong, and as we get through the season, I think we'll figure that out. But right now, if they beat Notre Dame, I can't really rank Notre Dame, so that means I can't rank Texas A&M. Then Illinois, Kansas are right there on the edge. Both teams, that was a very close game, very similar teams, so I think both of those teams should be barely ranked or barely on the outside. I've got them on the outside right now. And then Boston College, they took care of business this week, so they beat Florida State. Boston College, I definitely am considering them as well. So if you're just wondering, those are the teams right there on the outside. And I do want to also recognize several other 2-0 teams that haven't really proven enough to me just yet. But Syracuse, Virginia, North Carolina, Arizona, Cal. How about that win on the road at Auburn? Duke, Pittsburgh, BYU, Indiana. They've looked good so far. UCF, TCU, Michigan State, Rutgers, Washington, Wisconsin, and South Carolina. I think we'll find out about that group of teams here very soon. Some of them I do believe are probably going to be top 25 teams. Again, at this point, I don't have enough information to really know which ones those are. Okay, so let's go now to 16 through 20. Iowa State at number 22-0. Just talked about them and comparing them with Iowa. I think you've got to rank those teams very close together. Then we've got Vanderbilt at number 19. Vanderbilt beat Alcorn State 55-0. And I know you're saying, well, it's Alcorn State. It's an FCS team. But Vanderbilt doesn't usually do that. They don't usually look that dominant. They've got the win over Virginia Tech, who beat Marshall. So it looks like Virginia Tech is, they're still a solid team. Vanderbilt should absolutely be ranked, and they're not ranked. I didn't really look deep at the coaches and AP poll, but I don't think they were ranked in those polls just because their name's Vanderbilt. That's the only thing. You cannot, you just can't do it. You can't look at the names of the teams, the logos. That's not a good way to rank teams. Vanderbilt has been impressive so far, and they deserve to be ranked. Michigan losing to Texas, but I really felt like this was a lot about how good Texas is. And again, maybe Michigan's just terrible. I don't know. It's so hard this early in the season. You look at Clemson coming in number 17. This is a team that we thought, after playing Georgia, man, maybe they're not very good. Maybe they're just not, the offense is not there. But I think now we see it was just about Georgia being that good because they went out and just destroyed Appalachian State. I believe it was, 35-0 in the first quarter. I mean, just a complete annihilation of a pretty good group of 5 team. So I was really impressed with Clemson. That tells me that it's not really about them being bad. It's just about Georgia being that good, and makes me feel like it's even more clear about who the top team is. So I guess I just gave away my number 1 team. But Clemson at number 17. Then we've got Arkansas at 16. Look, I know they lost to Oklahoma State, and a lot of people are going to complain and say that they shouldn't be ranked. They have a loss. This is a team that preseason was not expected to be very good, but I don't care about the preseason. I saw them beat a team, 70-0. They scored a touchdown on all 10 of their drives. I don't care if it's an FCS team. That was impressive. And then I saw them really outplay Oklahoma State. Looked like the better team against Oklahoma State. Just made too many mistakes. Really gave the game away, in my opinion. And so I believe Arkansas should be ranked. And I think they should be right there with Oklahoma State. Because, again, you compare those two teams, I can't say that Oklahoma State definitely looked like a better team than Arkansas. I thought Arkansas probably looked like the better team. So I dropped Oklahoma State, even though they won. Again, based off of that performance, I dropped them to number 15. So Oklahoma State at number 15, they are now 2-0, but you got to give them credit for that Game 1 win against South Dakota State. And then this past week, didn't play great, but they did what they had to do. They made adjustments. They got, improved some things in the second half. So I do want to give them some credit, but yeah, it doesn't look like a top 10 team like I was thinking. And then we've got Nebraska at number 14. The Cornhuskers, how about that win for them over Colorado? That was very impressive. And again, I didn't have them ranked last week because we didn't really know a lot about them, but that doesn't mean they can't jump up to number 14 based off of this win. So look at the 2 games. They had an easy win in Game 1, and now they beat Colorado, and their defense just dominated. And we know that this is a good Colorado offense. I mean, I think everyone would agree with that. I know their offensive line is pretty bad, but they can still score some points. And Nebraska just completely dominated them. They were able to do pretty good on offense as well. I wonder, how much they kind of took their foot off the gas after they got a lead, because Colorado did kind of outplay them in the second half. But that's always tough to figure out. Nebraska, though, was impressive. 13 LSU. They beat Nichols 44-21. I don't really take anything away from that game. I don't think they probably were really up for that game. And it wasn't a pretty performance, but I still go back to the USC game as being a real measuring stick for them, and they played toe-to-toe with them and had a chance to win that game. Utah beat Baylor 23-12. They are 2-0. An okay performance. I know Cam Rising had an injury. I meant to look up his status coming out of that game, see if he's going to be good to go or if it's going to be a long-term thing. So I'll try to remember to do that. But Utah looking solid. Louisville at number 11. I think this is a team that, they haven't proven it against a good team, but they blew out their first opponent. They beat Jacksonville State 49-14. Jacksonville State's a pretty good group of 5 team. It's not a team that you just show up and beat like that. I mean, that was an impressive performance. So Louisville kind of sneaking up these rankings up to number 11. We'll find out more about them when they play a quality opponent. But so far, so good for the Cardinals. All right, let's go to the top 10. We've got USC at number 10. How about pitching a shutout? I know it's Utah State, but still, this is a defense that wasn't getting shutouts in games like this. And they beat Utah State 48-0. They've got the win over LSU looking really good. Missouri, I believe, they have shut out both of their opponents so far this season. They beat Buffalo 38-0. Again, not really tested, but they look solid so far. Alabama, a sloppy performance against South Florida, but they did wind up winning 42-16. That game was way closer than that score would indicate. But South Florida just seems to have their number. We saw it last year, so I'm not going to overreact too much to that, but there are some concerns for the Crimson Tide. Penn State, I mean, this is a tough one. Where do you rank them? They barely get by Bowling Green, had to come from behind to win 34-27, but they do have that really impressive performance against West Virginia. So, if game 1 was an easy win against an FCS team and then they struggled against Bowling Green, I probably wouldn't have them ranked. But they have that one over West Virginia, so we know what they are capable of. They're not as high for me. I think I had them number 2 last week, but still, that win right there is enough to where I think Penn State's still a really good team. And I think they just didn't play well against Bowling Green. Ole Miss beat Middle Tennessee 52-3. They're 2-0, and again, it's kind of waiting to see if that team, how good they actually are. They haven't been tested yet, and that's one of those where you have to look at preseason research a little bit, because when teams just don't have any opponents to compare to, quality opponents to look at, you have to look at that a little bit. So that's kind of the case here for a team like Ole Miss. Our top 5. We've got Ohio State at number 5. Very impressive performance against a decent MAC team in Western Michigan. Beat them 56-0. So a nice win there for the Buckeyes. Miami takes care of Florida A&M 56-9. That score looks really good. It wasn't a great performance by the Hurricanes, but they did what they needed to do. And again, it's a game I'm sure they really weren't up for. But we have to go back to that domination against Florida. That's why they are at number 4. Tennessee was very impressive against NC State. They win this game 51-10. The defense now. Tennessee's got a defense now, and they were very impressive on that side of the ball in this game. The offense, we knew it was going to be great. It was great in this game against, maybe NC State's really that bad. I don't know. And again, we'll find out more as we get into the next few weeks. But based off of that performance, Tennessee, it looks like a very, very dangerous team. Texas is number 2. They beat Michigan 31-12. What can you say here? This was just, I thought they'd win this game. I really didn't think it would be super close, but I didn't expect them to be up and win that game like they did. I know 31-12 the final score, but they could have won by a lot more. They had a big lead early, kind of took their foot off the gas, and that's why these scores sometimes don't tell the whole story. But Texas, their defense has been lights out so far. The offense, great as expected. This is a team that could be a real threat to win a national championship this season, but the front runner is still Georgia. They beat Tennessee Tech 48-3. This game told me absolutely nothing. They don't really run up the score against these types of opponents, and so again, we didn't learn much about Georgia in this game, but their win over Clemson, like I said earlier, looks so much better now, and I think that definitely makes it clear that Georgia should be ranked in that top spot. So if we're going resume, maybe Texas should be number 1 because of their win over Michigan. Maybe USC should be number 1 because they beat LSU, but I don't think we can't look at just resume this early in the season. So those are my top 25 rankings. Give me yours and give me your thoughts on how I rank the teams down in the comments below.